Today we are going to discuss about one other topic, payment methods, or we can call methods of payments anything. So you can call it directly in that way. Methods of payment. We have already been into this menu earlier for creation of check method. So by the term methods of payments, what does it mean, or what do you understand? What is methods of payment? Could be a mode of payment that we pay to the vendors, or maybe that we also receive from the customers. So that's payment from customers is a different scenario. It's into accounts receivable again, where since we are in accounts payable, so it's mode of payment that we use for paying to the vendors. So what are the different modes of payment or methods of payment we have in industry? Pay through check, we can directly hand over the cash to the vendor, or UPI payments and electronic payments. We also have SWIFT payments in case of foreign currency transfers. We have credit card payments. We have many of them. So it depends on the country again and the market and the prominence. So as I was saying, cash, check, UPI, credit card, electronic. SWIFT payments. In US, these are famous actually. ACH payments.
Wire payments.
Yeah, wire also we have wire payments. Wire payments and SWIFT payments are almost the same actually. So there are different kinds of methods of payments. So we can use any method of payment for making that uh, payments actually. We also have these promissory notes and all, but we are not using it anyway. In order to use them or to link specifically which method of payment should be related to which vendor, you should first create methods of payments. And then while paying, you can use one of the method of payment. I mean, while posting a payment journal, you can attach a method of payment during the payment, or you can link a method of payment directly as a default method of payment to a vendor, so that whenever you are paying to the vendor, you would pay only through that method of payment or in that mode of payment. So let's see how we can create methods of payments in Dynamics in the accounts payable side. So I'll take you to accounts payable module. This will be again in the payment setup only. Here we have method of payment, methods of payment here. Click on methods of payment. It takes a while to load. So we also have another one which we have already discussed earlier. PDC, post-dated check method of payment. Check and post-dated check are almost same, but since we have it some variants, we have created PDC as separate, right? So now when we go into the method of payments, so you can see there are two methods of payments which we have already created. Check method of payment for the purpose of generation of check earlier, and post-dated check we have created for a different situation to generate post-dated checks for the vendors. So we have seen these two mechanisms. However, I'll explain you step by step in everything. By the time I'll just create a new one to explain you. So I'll create this method of payment as CC, credit card. Okay. So this payment status is one we have. Normally the payment status you can keep as sent. So whenever you generate a payment, automatically the payment status in the journal will change from none to sent. So it happened with check payments. Usually if you have the status as none, when you generate the check, automatically the payment status will change to sent. Okay, but for credit cards, if you are generating a file, okay. If you are not generating and if you are just using credit card method, then that's okay. You can leave it as none. But other than that, you have some other thing like sent, received, approved, and rejected. Sent is on the side of payables when you send a check or when you send any other payment. Received in the side of accounts receivable side when you receive anything actually. Approved and rejected. Rejected is for voiding it. Approved is for approving it. So it's again on the receivable side, approved and received. So approved mostly is for this one. What's it? Promissory notes or bills of exchange like that. So rejected is for voiding any method. So I can select none here. Then this one is which I have here, period. Either invoice or date or week or total. Actually, this is when you have a process actually called as payment proposal. Payment proposal, what it does is it will group all the invoices or the open invoices for the vendor for the payment. If I select invoice here and select the method of payment as suppose I select the method of payment as credit card, and if I select invoice, so if there are four invoices pending for the vendor which has to be settled, all the four invoices will appear in line. I mean, four different payment lines will be created for four invoices. If I select invoice as the criteria, while paying, four payment lines will be created. However, if I select date here, date means according to the due date of the invoice. If any of the invoices are falling due on the same date, so suppose let's say two invoices are falling due on the same date, two invoices are not falling due on the same date. So the first two which are falling due on the same date will be combined, or a single payment line will be created for those two invoices. For the other two invoices, yes, you have separate lines again. So week means if the due date of the invoices is falling into a same week, then if for the four invoices, if the due date is falling into same week, for four of them, a single payment line will be created. Single payment line will be created, consolidating all the balances of the invoice. Suppose if one of the invoice is not falling due in that week, but however you are paying it, the three will be falling in due in the same week. So the three invoices will be combined into single payment line, and the other invoice will be left over as a different payment line. Total means how many other invoices you have, all of them will be combined into a single payment line. Suppose if there are four or five invoices with different payment amounts, there will be a single payment line for settling all these invoices of consolidated amount. Okay. When you select the method of payment, which one you mostly opt for, you can select here. So if it's a credit card method, if you pay on a total basis, whatever is pending for the vendor, if you are paying it at a time, most of the time, so you can select the period as total here. So I'll explain you the significance of this during, I mean, in the next part of the
Very nice.
course, where next part of the course where we can run the payment proposal for different invoices that are pending for the vendors, and then I'll show you how it works. Then you have grace period option. So here you can read the help text, enter the number of days that are added to the cash discount date or the due date to define the broadest period of time in which cash discount can be obtained. Means you can add grace periods for a method of payment actually. So why grace periods are allowed for methods of payment is, see, if it is a credit card payment, there will be an immediate transfer of money. But if it's a check payment, suppose if you had generated a check today and gave it to the vendor, there can be chances that it might get delayed in transport, or by the time vendor receive or deposit in bank, your cash discount date might expire. For such cases, you can go for some grace period or take some grace period from the vendors, which you can apply onto your pay methods of payments. So cash discount will remain, as well as if the invoice is due, then another 2 days of grace period also will remain. So it could be for cash discount or for the invoice due date, anything. This grace period will work. Okay, for credit card, I'm not giving any grace period. For checks and other delayed payments, you can give some grace periods. Most of them will not even prefer for grace periods too. Then payment type, actually you can select a payment type. Maybe if for checks you can select check, for electronic payment you can select electronic payment, for promissory notes you can select this. Since credit card is into other, I'll select other here. Okay, then coming here, last file number and today, it generally shows what was the last file number that was exported and how many of them are done today. So generally if you are generating a check means, so what was the last check number that you have generated and how many checks are done generated today and the date of last generated check you can see here. So those three details will be available, but I think they are specific again, not for this country. Not sure if this get generated in this, these details are generated in this demo environment, but usually this is the purpose, how many files. Normally when you print check or generate check, you will have the file generated, right? So how many files are last file number means the check number, and how many files are generated today. You can see here number of last file that was sent on the system date here. This is last file number. So this is date, the date of last count of files numbers. Then posting. So when you are using this method of payment, what is your account type that you want to select? Ledger account or bank account? Mostly you will select bank account only, right? Because through bank only you will make such payments. Like if it is check payment, you will do it through bank only. So you can select one default bank through which you are going to pay this, ICICI Bank or SBI Bank. You have two bank accounts, right? So you can select one. Or if you have created a separate bank account as credit card or a credit card bank account, you can create that. Just create a bank account as credit card and you link a separate main account to that bank. That's that credit card account. So you can give that credit card account here or that bank account here. Then this bridging posting and post-dated check clearing are not applicable in this process. They are only applicable to the post-dated check. Right? I'll take you to that point in a second. Then you can give bank transaction type by default. So which bank transaction type? These are all the bank transaction types we have created in cash and bank management earlier as a first setup. Here I have CC, credit card. So what happens if I give it here is whenever I'm selecting this method of payment as CC, I mean credit card in vendor payments, automatically bank transaction type will be picked into the journal. So there is a field called bank transaction type. So it will be filled automatically when I apply it here in the method of payment. Then this is for promissory notes actually. Type of draft, no draft, since it's not a promissory note. And this is for federal payments. Here you have one called credit card. Other than that, you have money, check, credit score, food voucher, meal ticket, gift card and all. Mostly for retail. But however, we can select one here. Method of payment as credit card. So that's how. Then one of the important part is this one. You can generate some electronic export formats. Export formats in the sense how you can export a file into file out of Dynamics. So normally for check here I have given check format. So this is a default format. Normally I can see here them in this part setup. In setup I can see some export formats. These are the default export formats given by Dynamics. So I have selected check and moved it this side. You can also use this notch US. I can move it this side. Then if it is for anything else like payroll checks or for promissory notes, I can use these export formats as well. So this, and for return formats and remittance formats also, it provides some default things actually. Returns and remittances mostly comes in promissory notes and bills of exchanges. Okay, for check payment, I use this export format as check. For electronic payments, I can use this Notch IUS or ACH payment. Okay. Other than this, you can also import your own export formats actually. So this export format is there right here. These are the default export formats. Other than this, you can, if you enable this option, generate electronic export format, you can see this one is appearing, export format configuration, electronic export format configuration. So this can be configured or this can be used as well. So these two are downloaded actually through another workspace called as this one, electronic reporting. We have a workspace called as electronic reporting. In this workspace, you will find this export formats for different payment methods. So through that, for different countries, you will have different types of export formats, which is feasible for them. It's, through this, you can download some export formats. If you download a package there, you can see them in the list here, like this. Credit transfers or electronic transfer related payment formats, you can see. You can select one according to the country. Whatever you have downloaded, you will see it here in the list. You can select anything that you want. So that's when you will use this one, generate electronic export format. If not, you can use the standard format for export. You can also design your own electronic export formats in a way that you want, and you can give that here so that a file will be generated as you wish, or a check will be generated as you wish, or regarding any other method of payment, anything will be generated as you wish if you give an export format here. Then return formats, remittance formats are mostly for this promissory notes and invoice journals only. So this one also create and post a journal when posting invoices. This is also for promissory notes. And this default journal name you can also give for promissory notes. You can create one separately for promissory notes or use the same vendor payment journal. Anything. So for checks or any other payments, you can only limit to this particular export format here. So since I gave check here, we have generated checks earlier, right? Some PDFs are generated. So this is that is of this format only. Through this only it's being generated. Without giving this check format here, export format here, it won't generate. Key point. Then you can give some mandatory things that has to be filled in when you are using this method of payment. Suppose if I say check number is mandatory. Whenever I'm making check payment, check number should be mandatorily generated or filled in the journal. Okay. Then offset account has the type bank. Always offset account should have the type bank. You can select this one. Bank transaction type is mandatory. Whenever I'm selecting this method of payment, I should always fill the bank transaction type in the payment journal. So anyway, I have given it here, bank transaction type as number 3 for the check. So it will automatically gets populated onto the journal. But in case if anybody misses it, then you cannot post the journal. It will stop you saying that bank transaction type is mandatory. Please assign it. You can also give something else. Payment specification is mandatory. Then payment ID is mandatory. Payment note is mandatory. Payment reference is mandatory. If you say payment reference is mandatory, you have a separate field. Now for all of these, you have separate fields in payment journal. You have to fill each of them in case if you select all of them as mandatory. Okay, not compulsory, but if the business requires such kind of controls, you can give them. No problem. Then payment attributes. This is actually related to electronic payments. Like most preferably third party bank. Third party bank means the vendor bank. So vendor bank details sure mandatory whenever you're using this method of payment. That's what that vendor, you can give actually bank details to vendor or link some bank details of the vendor to the vendor so that during payments actually the bank details will reflect on the payment journal. If that is mandatory, you can give this one payment attributes. If not, you can leave it, not an issue. So that's how you can configure the methods of payments. Go for post-dated checks actually. For post-dated checks, we have this separately. Bridging posting is enabled, and you should definitely select one specific bank account for post-dated check generation. Bridging posting and post-dated check clearing posting, you can give one. So post-dated check clearing posting, and you have given this vendor post-dated check account, PDC vendors, because this is used for generation of checks as well as for clearing them. While I use the method of payment as PDC in the payment journal, automatically it will take this account rather than the bank account in the journal as an offset account. This account will be selected. We have seen it already. And while clearing it, when we clear the post-dated check, automatically this account will get debited and bank account will get credited. So that's the bridging account policy that we have. So we can give that bridging account here the same way, these two parameters as well. So these are the different methods of payment. You can create this method of payment also, COD, cash on delivery. So cash method, payment status none, pay according to the invoice. Okay, payment type other. Okay, and generally use account type as ledger only for cash payments. I can use my cash account here rather than bank account since I pay it through my normal cash. So I'll use cash account here. So rest all are okay. Method of payment, you can here select money. It's only US specific again. Other bank transaction type is not here. and rest all are common. No export formats for cash payments. Then save it. And then you can also create electronic payment status. You can keep none or sent anything. If you keep sent, you might have to generate a file, or you might have to manually change the status to sent during the payment. So I'll just select a sent. Then period, pay invoice, payment type electronic payment, account type bank. So I'm not selecting a specific bank. I can use any bank. Bank transaction type electronic payments. It's here, number 5. Method of payment. Here you can select other because you don't see electronic here. Then you can also use an export format if you want to, like this Notch IOS format. For this again to be exported, you might need some more the details to be entered on the vendor as well as on the bank place. Let's see what it would ask later. Then other details, like if you want all of them as mandatory, bank transaction type is mandatory, payment reference is mandatory, you can use them. If not, leave it. So you can, this way you can create the methods of payments and you can use them for different situations. So I'll show you how to use them now. As I told you, methods of payments are generally used for payment of vendors. So make some payments to the vendors. So for paying vendors, I'm going to accounts payable module, payment journal. Takes a while to load. Then go to new vendor payment journal. Go to lines. So you can select a vendor account for whom you are going to pay. Suppose something like this Nika products. An amount of 1,000 you are paying for the vendor, so vendor is debited. You can use a method of payment. You can select the offset account, or you can directly select a method of payment if you want to without selecting an offset account. See, suppose initially you can select a method of payment, which method you want to use. You can see all the methods: credit card method, check method, cash on delivery, electronic, and PDC. Suppose if I select this method, cash on delivery. So as soon as I select the method of payment, I can see the offset account filled in here. Which account? It is cash account. Automatically I can see the cash account filled in because in the method of payment in the COD we have given the posting account as cash account here. So it automatically picks in there if we select the method of payment. You can select any other method of payment like PDC. If you select PDC, you can see this one, post dated check account, vendor PDC account takes automatically picked up because you have given it in the PDC as bridging account here. So bridging account is considered actually in the PDC, not this bank account. Otherwise, the bank account will be selected if you are not using bridging. Suppose for this electronic payment, if I give a bank account here, I always do electronic payments through SBI accounts. Let's assume. I'll save it here. Now I go to this payment and select the method of payment as electronic, suppose. So as soon as I select electronic, I can see bank account reflecting here, SBI. Doesn't mean that you have to use the same bank account. You can change it if you want to. But by default, it will pop up here or appear here in the line. So that's how. So you can manually change the status to sent here if you want to. So this one payment status, and you can post it. But when you generate payments, automatically the payment status will change to sent. But for generating electronic payment, there some requirement is needed actually to be configured. So I don't think it will work here in the demo. Well, we'll see another day how we can export another format of for electronic. Actually, it exports a um, notepad format just for reference sake. So now I can validate this payment and I can post it. So for this method electronic, I kept the payment status as sent, right? So that is why I changed it manually from none to sent. Without changing it, I can't post it. So then I can post it. Done. It is posted. You can see the voucher too. Accounts payable is debited and bank account is credited. That's it. So since this is completed,